After what must have been a pretty painful watch as Gold Coast effortlessly took apart an injury-depleted Essendon, the Bulldogs have ended up ninth. And outside of the bookends of the ladder being the Crows on top and the Eagles on the bottom, I don't think any club further emphasises just how correct their ladder placement is than the Dogs. And I thought it would be worthy of looking at what is next for them over this offseason to ensure that they are not stuck in footy purgatory. Like the video if you like the video, subscribe to join the Daz Talks Footy family, and let's get into what is next for the Bulldogs. Now, apologies to the Dogs fans because I'm going to tell you something that you probably already know at this point, and that is that they had the equal most wins by a non-finalist in VFL AFL history. They also had the best, effectively, season in the top 8 era for a team that missed the 8. Now, what's quite incredible is that the last time that the Bulldogs finished ninth was 2005, and in those seasons, they were the number 1 and number 2, respectively, teams in terms of scoring points. They were both of those sides 8th in points against. They both had a 57% scoring accuracy. They were both 7-4 in their home games, and the Crows finished on top of the ladder in both of those seasons. Does that mean Adelaide are not going to win this flag like they did in 2005? Hey, we shall see. It is worthy of note that the Bulldogs, in terms of finishing ninth, was genuinely perfect. 2-9 against top 9 teams, well, top 8 teams, effectively, because they were ninth, just further exemplified how not ready they were. And it also showed how good they were because they didn't really suffer a hell of a lot of upset against the teams below them. They blew them off the park with the most 70-point wins and over of any team this year. So is it flat track bullying? You could argue that. Is it a case of just not being good enough yet? You could also make that argument. And there is a little bit of credit to go around in terms of how the fixture was built, because after being 2-3 in their first 5 games, they were still 6-4, 9-6, 12-8, and 14-9 when it comes to their 5-game splits, and of course 3 games at the end. They were just pretty good. Now, in terms of that top 9 record, I do feel for them a little bit because they had no losses against teams above them on the ladder by more than 5 goals. The points differential was minus 125, which is an average losing margin of around 14 points. So it's not as if it was they were smacking the bad teams and then getting smacked by the good ones. It was just painstakingly short. Now, the good news around that is that means that they don't necessarily need to go straight into a rebuild, but they definitely need to address some list holes. A lot of people are going to talk about the fact that they had the more players ranked inside the top 100 this season than any other club, and a lot of people are going to point out that the bottom end of their list is just not good enough to get the job done. Both of those things are true. Now, I will say that the fact that Bevo has had to retool on the fly, he absolutely can be looked at in terms of a point of criticism around not getting the job done. I would also think that Sam Power right now, who is the boss of list management at the Bulldogs, has some blame here, and I do believe that the Bulldogs leaders are getting none of the criticism at all because every other leader does, and they just don't for some reason. It's, you didn't make the finals with how good you are at the top end. Like, that's on you. This is Geelong in the 90s all over again. Yeah, they were elite at the top end. They weren't so good at the bottom end. And granted, because of the way the AFL is set up now with the equalisation measures and the basic inequity of the father-son and academy system, is that that's just not going to get the job done anymore. And like Geelong in the 90s, by the way, is they're a centre-half back short. Malcolm Blight has admitted in interviews before that he probably should have played Barry Stoneham as a centre-half back and just left Ablett and Brownless alone. There is an argument to be made that the Bulldogs should be doing the same with Aaron Norton because you would still have a couple of tools there. Could you make Jordan Croft into a centre-half back? I think the teams that do need a key defender just can't get it done with an 18-year-old, 19-year-old, or an inexperienced kind of player. The Bulldogs have already got Buslinger down there as that younger guy that's coming through. Whether he's going to stay on the list or not next year, I'm not particularly sure, but they are going to be scouring the AFL landscape. I know some people are saying Stephen May. I just don't know how good he's going to be. I could see it as kind of like a Tom Barras thing where it's like, okay, in a side that's not that great, you can look like you're getting exposed, but in a better system, the older key defender is going to be okay. Barras has been an upgrade on Sam Frost. Every statistical nature is going to point in that direction. May could do the same. I still think that Lever and Butts are going to be the two that they should absolutely go for. Of course, Butts being the younger of the two. And I also think that Zach Butters is going to be, whether it's this year or next year, atop of their trade target tree. I know that they're going after Jack Silvani as well, which I'm still not sure if as a number 2 key defender, he is the answer, and it could just be a height problem, as good as he was at Carlton throughout his defensive career, you could say. Do I think he's going to end up at the Dogs? I think it's pretty even from what I know as of right now. But they clearly just need to fix that hole first. And whilst as crazy as it sounds, they need health as well. So many of their good players missed a considerable amount of time. Cody Waitman especially, because you're looking at that forward of centre damaging player. They didn't have Jamara. That doesn't help either. Whatever you think of Jamara, the guy has had goal output and scoring output. So again, there is going to be good and bad here on both sides. It is quite measured. It is quite balanced. You can look at what they did this year as a massive failure if you want to, but you also need to look at it and go, well, they are going to need to do things because you can't stay here. Being around this mark stinks. Look at the Bombers, by the way. I have zero criticism for the Bombers this year. Not just because of their health, but the fact is that they are going to get a swath of young players in this year and hopefully are going to be able to use what they've learned this year to get better, whether it's in the next 12 months or in the next 36 months, I don't know. But what you can't do is just hang around, top up, and if it doesn't work, you're going to crash. And you can either get ahead of that or not. But I do think that they have an opportunity, the Dogs, to kind of top up a little bit and still see where they're at. And topping up, again, is going to come with the health. If you are able to use a first-round pick on a Lockie Doverston or a small forward, there are a couple of them around the mark in this draft. I like Taylor Byrne as well from the Greater Western Victoria Rebels. I think the Dogs moving forward very simply just cannot rest on their laurels. And I don't think they're going to, by the way. Do I think they're going to be the team from outside of the top 8 to jump into the top 4? I think that's going to be a very easy preseason prediction to do. I'm not necessarily thinking to myself, well, that's absolutely what's going to happen. The fixture next year should help, in terms of the teams that they are going to play, because they're going to get an easier fixture than the teams that are around that 6th, 7th, 8th mark, absolutely. But whilst they're going to need to be better at some aspects of the game, absolutely, they also can't really afford to be worse at anything. And they were so good at so many things this year that if they take a little bit of a step back, there are still questions to be asked on whether they can be a true contender moving forward. And I've broken those numbers down into a few categories. So check this out. In terms of possessing the footy, they're number 1 in hardball gets and ground ball. Number 2 in loose ball, just normal ground ball and uncontested possessions. In ball movement, they're equal first for handball receives, second in D50 to forward 50 chains, number 2 in defensive half to scoring chains, number 2 in meters gained, number 4 in retaining possession from their kicks. At stoppage, they're first for center clearances, they're second in stoppage clearances, they're third in score launches. And when it comes to scoring themselves, they were number 1 in scoring from stoppage, number 2 in scoring from their forward half, number 2 in scoring from center bounce, and number 4 scoring from turnover. It is going to be very unlikely that they are going to be able to retain all of those stats next year. Healthy, could they do it? I mean, they could, for sure. The likelihood of that happening, you'd be braver than I'm willing to be to bet on that, is all I'm going to say. And when you have a look at the guys also that are out of contract, yes, I think Adam Chalori is going to stay. I would be more than comfortable, and I know Liam Jones is kind of a depth piece if you can't get something done in the offseason. I would be more than comfortable with no one else on that list staying at the club. In terms of you looking at ways to improve your bottom 11, now in terms of your depth, if you're able to, of course, get Waitman back, then your bottom half of your list gets, a little bit better because you're dropping one of the not so good players off and putting Waitman at the upper echelon of the players that you've got on the list. But do I think that they can use the draft or an off season to improve on maybe 2 out of like Anthony Scott, Nick Caulfield, Oscar Baker? These guys, they try hard. I understand all that. But are they going to be players that are going to be part of a contending team? I would argue probably not with the way that they are at the moment. They've only got 2 picks in this year's draft, so they are going to have to do some finagling. Now, if there is any club that is going to benefit out of the fact that they can now trade picks 2 years in advance, it's the Dogs. How aggressive they are going to be, I'm not 100% sure, but if they can come out of this with 2 out of the 4 big list holes, and centre half back has to be one of them, as we know. But if they can also get another small forward on top of Waitman coming back, a lockdown defender, and some quality depth, you could argue that they could solve that problem with Jack Silvani and then another centre half back, because he could work as your lockdown kind of guy. You could argue that if they draft a Lockie Doverston or a Taylor Byrne, they could solve the small forward problem, or be perceived to try and solve that problem. And then if they can get any kind of quality depth trading into this draft, or if there are some players that are disgruntled that they may look at, that is a way to go. Although that hasn't quite worked out. As I said, guys like Caulfield, Poulter, Oscar Baker aren't necessarily contending guys. But what's next for the Bulldogs is they are going to be one of the more interesting teams to watch over the off season. And personally, I've got faith in the top of the list. The bottom of the list needs improving, but I think that they are smart enough to understand what is the good, bad, and ugly on the list, and are going to do everything that they can to try and change it. So what do you think about the Bulldogs in this offseason, guys? Comment below, let me know. Like the video if you like the video. Subscribe to join the Dad Talks Footy family, and I'll see you in the next video, which is the August mock draft. 30 picks. Can't wait for it. Hope you can't either. Have a good one, guys. See you later.